So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I bait my site and the things that I like to do, and just things that have worked for me in the past. Some of these things might not be what you see other people doing. It may not be something that you do, but it's something that has worked for me, and I think anything that somebody does that's different, it's a good thing to pick up some just some new things or new techniques that may work for you. Another thing is everything that I'm doing today is based on opening a brand new bait site. Like, no one has baited this area in a long time, and so it's not a leased site where the ones up north where the bear density is a lot higher, and you know, you can pretty much get away with just a little bit of grease and, you know, your pastries and things like that, and you'll probably have success because the bears have already established that site. They know where it is. So these things you may not agree with, or you may want to try, and that's great. So if I can benefit you at all, I hope I can. And if you have other ideas that you would like to share, that'd be excellent. You can put those in the comments below. I don't pretend to know everything, but this is just what I've done and what has worked for me. But I would love to, you know, continue to learn more. If I'm doing something that, like, hey, why don't you try this? I would love to hear it. As far as what I use for bait, it really is kind of about like what you can get and what you're willing to pay for. I would say, like, right now I have a pretty good source, and so I'm able to get some pastries. I'm able to get some expired things for a really low cost, and I would advise you to, like, if you can find cheap bait or you can find like a resource, I wouldn't share that with anybody. Just like I'm not going to share that where I get my stuff, because once one person finds out, then you have so many people going to that same source, and then all of a sudden it's shut down. So right now I have some old pastries, some old donuts. I have like a Pop-Tart type of mix with some cashews. I did just buy a 55-gallon drum of peanut butter. What I have come to find is that I think the more natural you can get, the better. So I think like peanut butter is excellent. It's hard to work with. It's the oil in the peanut butter separates, and it can be really messy. But I think like last year I had a bear coming in, and he was only eating the peanut butter at first. And then as the natural feed that was in the area started to disappear, and I started to run out of peanut butter, he started to eat more of the pastries and things like that. They'll definitely eat pastries and things like, you know, the sweets, and I see a lot of people asking for Peeps and all the different things. All that stuff works, but I just find that the more natural you can get, they're going to feed on that first. So I think the more natural feed you can have, or bait that you can have, the better off you're going to be. So that's what I brought today, is some pastries, and I got mixed in some peanut butter, and I got a couple other things that I'll show you as I'm mixing it into the barrel, and kind of how I put it around the site a little bit. So right here obviously is my stand. The reason kind of for setting my stand up this way is the bait's out further than my stand where I'm coming in from. When you're coming into your stand and your bait site, you don't want to have to walk past your bait to get to your stand. So I've made a little bit of a trail here so I can come right into my stand. I'm not going past my bait, and then maybe disturbing the area more than I need to when I'm trying to sneak into my stand. So got my stand first, and then my bait out in front of me. I'm just gonna rake. We started to do this before when we first set up our the stand. So now I'm just gonna kind of quickly rake down the path. You can kind of already see that it's somewhat done. I'm just gonna maybe make it a little bit wider and clean it up a little bit, and hopefully, you know, if a bear's nearby when we come in to sit in the stand, we won't spook them by, you know, crunching on the leaves and things like that.
privacy?
At your house in your own bathroom, you can have privacy.
All right, so right now what I'm doing is building a wall behind my bait barrel. And the reason for that is it's going to force the bear to take the path of least resistance and come right into the barrel to give me a better shot. If I don't do this, what can happen is he can kind of hide behind the tree. I mean, this tree isn't much, but he can kind of hide behind there and kind of just like reach around with his paw and whatnot and make it difficult for me to get a shot. Another thing is if he comes in from the back like that, he could take the bait and just kind of keep going behind it, where now he has to come right out here in the open. I'm going to build a pretty good wall here and a pretty good wall here, so hopefully when he comes in, whether he's coming in from this side or if he's coming in from that way, it'll be a long enough time period where I can get a shot. I'm also putting my bait barrel facing this way because there's a little bit of a slope here, and if I did it on the other side, there's a hill that builds up. And so if you have a hill that builds up, when he goes to reach into the bait, that's going to force his shoulder blades back a little bit, and that's really going to protect his vital organs. So now there's a little bit of a slope here. So my thoughts are is when he goes into the barrel to grab the bait out with his head, it's going to force his legs forward and open up behind his shoulder. So that'll give me a better shot on where I'm trying to take my shot. The hole is about 12 by 12 inches, maybe a little bit smaller, give or take. If he can't get his head into the barrel, he's probably a really good bear. And then obviously you can take the top off, and I got it loose enough that he can tip it, things like that, and that'll give it a, you know, when I'm coming into my bait, that'll be a dead giveaway that it's been hit if the barrel's tipped. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna make what I think some people call like a grease bed. And so what I'm trying to do with that is get this place pretty greased up. I like anywhere from like 10 to 15 gallons on the first site, and some might vary depending on if it's a new site or if it's a site that's been used for years and years. One product that I've used the last 2 years is Northwoods Bear Products, and it's called Gold Rush, and it smells like a really strong butterscotch. It's probably the strongest smelling stuff that I have found, and I know I'm wearing their hat. I just like the hat, and I like their stuff, but we're not sponsored by them at all. I'm not doing this to try and, you know, make money or anything like that. I will say that I used the Gold Rush last year, and I honestly didn't feel like it worked last year, but I think what I did was I ran it too thin in my grease. And so this year I just brought 4 buckets full of grease, and I pretty much emptied the whole thing into that. And then on the way here it got shaken and stirred in the back of the truck. So again, with the bed of grease here, what we're trying to do is just like if you were to step in a pile of crap or some mud and walk through your mother's living room, you're tracking that stuff all over the place. And I mean, this is pretty known through anybody that baits, that, you know, they get into the grease and then they walk out and carry it across the trail. You know, the bear cuts their trail and, you know, what's that? And then they come into your bait, and so hopefully you're getting more bears into your bait site from the grease. And I really like grease. I kind of like look forward to pouring it. Some people don't like it because it kills the vegetation around the area, but I cleaned it out pretty good. I think it meshes well better with the dirt than the leaves, because then it kind of makes it a little bit more muddy, more sticky. And you know, if you're not using that bait site every year, the vegetation is going to grow back in no time. So Amazon, again, it's Northwoods Bear Products, is the Gold Dust, and it's 500 times sweeter than sugar. And this is another butterscotch flavored scent. But what I did was I bought a 10-pound bag of sugar from Walmart for like $4. And that really carries a long way, and I'll sprinkle that onto my pastries and whatnot. And another thing I like to do is, so I mixed it with the sugar, so you can kind of see the grains of the Gold Dust in there, the butterscotch. And I like to just sprinkle it around the bait a little bit, just something sweet that can maybe help stick to their feet. And I'll, you know, sprinkle it in the area all around here, stuff to just keep the smell and the sweetness around. Another thing I like about sugar is, a lot of people say is like once you have bees on your bait, you have bear on your bait. So the sweeter I can get, like that honey, like that sweet, hopefully I'm attracting some bees in here, and hopefully that'll help bring some bear. Another thing I'm going to use is some molasses. Smells really good. I got this at Tractor Supply. It was like $7 for a gallon. One thing I learned the other day though is if you go to Blue Seal, you can get a 5-gallon pail of it for $21. So the next time I look to get molasses again, I'll go to Blue Seal. So hopefully that might help save you guys a little bit of money. But this stuff is nice and sticky. The bears love the taste, and I think it'll help bring them in. So now what I'll talk about is like some of the scents that I use. Like I've used just about like everything. Like I've used the Wilderness Freaks. I've used the Northwoods Bear products. I haven't used like Batum 907, and I haven't used like the Boar Masters yet. Those are things I'd like to try, but I'm pretty sure they're all fairly similar. And so this year, I did get Northwoods Bear Products Blueberry to try this year. And the reason I got this and the Gold Rush, besides the fact that they do smell amazing, is that I got them at a sportsman show and I got like a really good deal on it. So I want to try them. And all these products smell awesome. Like the Northwoods Bear products smell great. It's super strong. Like the blueberry smell on this is really strong. The Wilderness Freaks is very strong smelling too. But the thing is, for me, is that they're 20 bucks a pop, and you can almost use one every time you, like a whole bottle every time you come in and spray your bait if you get a little crazy. And sometimes I get a little carried away wanting to spray everything and making the scent as smelly as possible. So this year what I actually did was I made some of my own scents, and some things that I did that you could try if you want. I bought some anise or anise extract just from the Christmas tree shop, and it's 2 fluid ounces for $1. And so I bought like 5 of these or 10 of these or something like that. And then I bought vanilla imitation extract, which still smells like strong vanilla extract, just even though it's not pure. It's only $1, and again at the Christmas tree shop. And I bought like 10 of those. So right there I spent 20 bucks. And then I had some old like Crisco oil or whatever it was, and what I did was I poured it into some of my old spray bottles, and I made a pretty strong scent myself with just using a little bit of oil. I did put a little bit of water in there to help kind of like thin it out and maybe not use so much product. But you want to definitely use some sort of oil base, because that helps stick to the trees better than like water, which will just evaporate. And so what I'll do right now with these sprays is I want to try and get them up as high as possible, and like maybe like to the birch bark where that stuff that's flying off there, that stuff will hold heavy. But I really like these trees here because they're always blowing, and so when they blow, so does that smell, and it just carries it. And that's kind of the goal with the sprays. So I'll try. I got a bunch of these. I got with my peanut butter, there's a ton of peanut butter oil, so today I actually quickly just made a new one. I took some of the peanut butter oil, mixed it with the other oil that I had, and I was like, well, I'll give that a try. So just trying to be a little bit creative and save a little bit of money. What I like to also do is when I'm sitting in my stand, like I'll bring that blueberry in with me, and while I'm sitting up there hopefully waiting for a bear to come in, I'll just use it as a cover scent and kind of spray the area down while I'm up in my stand. So I'll just leave it right on the base there of my stand, and just easy quick grab and just spray the area down a little bit, get some scent flow, and hopefully cover my scent as well. When I'm setting a new site like this one is some people will call it a call bait or a stink bait. And so what I kind of came up with is the use of like old potato bags. And some people will put the meat right into like a bucket or things like that, and then I find that it kind of sits there and rots, and the smell doesn't carry quite as much because you're not getting as much airflow. So I thought this was a good idea. And what I like to use is over the course of the year, my wife doesn't particularly care for it, I don't think, but I'll just take chicken scraps or any kind of meat scraps or anything kind of like that that would stink really bad when it rots, and I just put it in the freezer, and then I just add that into here. And then what I'll do is I'll find like a branch up high, and I'll tie it off and zip tie it to the tree, and that stank is just, you know, sitting there swinging on a tree branch. Just something else to, you know, hopefully get some smell in. But the potato bags, you know, you usually just throw these away, but I think it's a good little added use, and you know, it's not much for storage or anything like that. So what's cool about this is when I put it all around the tree like this, you get some really good photos of the bear like climbing up the tree. Like last time I was putting it up as high as I could reach, and the bear was climbing up the tree to get to it. And so again, they love the peanut butter, so I like putting it up high. And what some people will do too is like, bears are really curious animals, just like you know, with the different smells of the meat and stuff. But like sometimes people will just come in and all of a sudden they'll hang a bucket over their stand, and the bear will be like, you know, distracted by that. They'll be like, oh, what's that? And like, so it's good to kind of change up your sight a little bit sometimes. If he might have caught you in your stand or something like that, something to distract them, like a bucket, you know, just hanging above above your bait, and you know, make the bear think, you know, what is this? So yeah, so just some more gooey stuff. Like obviously they love the peanut butter and the caramel, but just like that grease, if I can get anything to stick to their fur, like I'll put some right around here with the neck hole or the paw hole, depending on the size of the bear. Like get that right on his fur, and then hopefully he's carrying that out, and you know, other bears smelling it again. And another thing with this site is I'm gonna, like typically after a bear hits it, I'm gonna fill these holes with like logs, and I'm gonna put that board on top of this and put a big rock on it, because otherwise you'll just have coons eating for free, and they can be a real pain. I know some people have like real extravagant sites where the barrel's like hung from tree to tree, and they got, you know, Coke bottles and things like that, so the coons can't walk across it. But right now for me, I want raccoons in here. Unless I can get a bear immediately, I want something to come in here and track this smell through the woods. So right now, if I come back and all I have is coons on here, you know, I'm at least excited about that to start my bait site. And where this is a new site, anything that's going to carry that smell is what I want, and what, you know, I need to get these bears to come in. I just got this little container, I don't even know what it is, coconut palm sugar, whatever that is.
You have to have that exact type of container though.
Right, that's the only way it works.
Right.
So again, I filled this up with like the Crisco oil and stuff, and then put a little vanilla extract in there, and then all I did was cut up some old rags. And now what I'll do is pull down some saplings, tie them off like I've done there, and just sling them back up into the air. And just another way to get the smell up into the air. Again, using that oil where it won't just evaporate away. My baiting is complete. I've got my barrel all done. I've got the grease done. I've taken my gloves off now. All right, so now what I want to do is put on a fresh pair of gloves. And I do this every single time that I come in to bait. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hang my camera. Bears will take your camera down and chew it up, carry it into the woods. I'm going to fasten it with a lock, but I don't want any scent near my camera at all if I can help it. So I always change my gloves into fresh gloves when I'm hanging my camera, and hopefully that'll save you a camera or two, and they won't carry yours off. So make sure that you change your gloves. I get these right at Walmart for, I think it was like $11 for 200 pairs. So they last me probably 2 seasons. To wrap up here, what I like to do is I like to just bang the bucket, and that kind of will become a little bit of a dinner bell for the bear once they know that the bait's here. Right now it probably won't do a whole lot besides maybe chase them off a little bit further. But once they come in, then they like to know that I've been here. But I try to come in pretty routine, like almost the same time every other day or whatever I come in. And then when I'm actually hunting, I would never like bang the bucket. I want to try and sneak down here, and if I do put bait out, sometimes I don't when I'm hunting over it, depending on how often the bear's coming in, and my camera should tell me that. So the last tip that I can give you is, depending on where you are, sometimes when you're up north it might not work because you're on like a dirt road or things like that. but like where we're kind of in a grassier area, and like last year I was in a grassier area, what I like to do is help spread the scent out is I'll actually pour grease on the tires of the truck. So I pour like on all 4 sides, and then if you think about how far you're driving out, how much further are you spreading that? And it doesn't need to be a lot of scent in one spot for the bear to pick it up. Like even just, you know, carrying it, even if it's just like a little bit of a speck that hits the grass from one part of the tire or whatnot, I still think that will carry it out, and just again more scent. So what I like to look for on a new area, like in the areas that I've hunted bear, you're not going to go out and find bear scat. So really everything that I do is to try and get a bear to come in from a distance. I don't know what the bear density is in this area, so again, just more smells and things like that. So I look for a swampy area, a place where there's a lot of cover for the bear. They like cover. And then I look for what do they have for natural feed. So there's a lot of blueberries in the area that I'm hunting right now. Last year I was hunting in a spot that had a ton of raspberries, so that was like, you know, I was like, well, that's a good sign. And then the swamps is, I feel like, very important. Beech nut, things like that are I think very important. Just, you know, where do bears like to hang out? If you're fat and hairy, you know, do you want to be out in the open, or do you want to be near some water and things like that? So just something to kind of think about, and this is how I do it, and hopefully you can get a few tips from me, and hopefully they'll help you out this season.
So it was last bear season, and Daniel and I are sitting on the couch. It's like 9:30 at night, and all of a sudden Daniel just gets up. I'm like, where are you going? Because we're like just hanging out. He gets up, he's like, I'm gonna go to the garage. I was like, okay, for what? He's like, I just wanna go look at my bait. He comes in like half an hour later. He's just been going through his donuts and just looking at his bait.
Gotta get it ready. Make sure it's organized.
You're a freak.
I know. I do love bear season though.
You're like, bear season for you is like deer season for me. It's pretty much the equivalent. It's kind of not fair for Dan, me being the cameraman, because I get to mess with him and make shots look way worse than they have to be. So
I think for anybody that's baited before, and then they start getting into it, you start getting like a love for buckets. I'll like see a bucket, I'm like, that's a pretty nice bucket.
just give a little bit of adrenaline and start shaking a little.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, here we go.
Drive by and you're like, hey honey, did you see that bucket?
All right.